Hi, my name is David Green, a librarian at McGill University Libraries. Thank you for watching this workshop video for the Arts Research Internship Awards. We're going to be focusing on search skills in this particular video. Since we've gone over the basics of accessing stuff from home, it's time to take things to the next level. It's time to become a search ninja. Search is a skill like any other, and it takes practice and knowledge of the basics to improve. I like to liken it to cooking. Anyone can toss some instant ramen in a pot and make a meal out of it. You might even be able to survive that way, but do you want to simply survive, or do you want to thrive? Okay, so now that I have you completely sold on this, let's look at some of the concepts we're going to cover. So we're going to look at selecting the proper resource, really important, advanced search techniques, keywords versus subject headings, the scholarly research continuum, and citation management software, which is not exactly a search skill. And I'm really only going to be briefly touching on that, but there's some other videos that you can check out if you like related to citation management software that I'll point you to at the end of all this. So let's talk a little bit about McGill's WorldCat catalog. We go into detail about accessing resources from home and talk a little bit about WorldCat in the other video on accessing resources from home. So if you haven't looked at that one yet, might be good to take a look at that first. You could also watch it after, but really important that you check that one out. So briefly, WorldCat is our library catalog, and it searches through our entire collection. So not just our print materials, but all of our electronic materials, including ebooks, journals, journal articles, databases. You can search through it all through here. But now you're going to see that because it indexes so much stuff, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you get a whole ton of results, and it's a little bit hard to narrow things down once you get in here. So it's good in certain use cases, and not so great in others. I did this search here for Arab Spring. Now, it's a really general search, which actually works okay in WorldCat when you're searching for things like books. But we're going to be getting into how to do a little bit more of a narrow search and developing a proper, more useful search strategy a little bit later in the video. But this general search gives us an idea of what kind of results that we can expect in WorldCat. So you see we've got more than 12,000 results with the words Arab Spring in there somewhere. And we can actually see a breakdown of the results if we look on the left at our limits or filters. So limits and filters are really important to check out in any database because you're going to get a ton of results. You can always limit things down by looking at how they're broken down on the side, and ticking any of these boxes will limit things to a particular format or subject or language, that sort of thing. Always take a look at the limits on the left. In this case, we're going to see that the vast majority of the stuff that came back are articles, and we can actually limit to article to see what that result set looks like. Now you'll see that one of the limits or issues, we'll say, with using WorldCat to sort of browse for articles by topic, rather than looking for something that you know the title of, for instance, is that we're going to have so many results and just say like 10 results per page. Paging through all of these is just not an efficient way of searching. And because this was such a general search, it's highly unlikely that we're going to find something that really hits what we're trying to research on the head, you know? And, you know, the further we page through the results, the more noise we're going to get. So there might be some stuff that is relevant and some stuff that isn't. It's just not an efficient way to search. We'd just be paging through pages and pages of results and kind of tearing our hair out a little bit. So it's not the most efficient way to search for articles when you don't know what you're looking for. Now, it is good when you do know what you're looking for. So that's to say, if you have the title of an article or a journal and you want to kind of quickly look something up to see if we have access, you can type in the title into WorldCat, and hopefully it should be one of your first results, if not your first result. So it's good for that. Not so good for browsing for articles. Now it is actually good for browsing for ebooks to see what we have in our collection. And because books tend to be on a more general topics than articles, which tend to be very, very specific on a very specific topic, a general search like this ends up being okay. But there are actually techniques you can use to use the results that you found to find other interesting material. And this is going to bring us to our first lesson about keywords versus subject headings. Although I guess the first lesson was really about limits, checking limits on the side. But keywords and subject headings. So what's that all about? Well, if we open up the record of a book by clicking on its title, this is the record that gives all the information about the book, all of its metadata, so its title, author, description, content, subjects, etc. We can get a sense of how our search actually worked. When we did this keyword search, which is a default search, the keyword search, it's looking through this entire record to see whether the words Arab and spring appear somewhere in here. Now it's a little bit more complicated than that, but because it's looking to see also if they're appearing close together and that sort of thing. But basically the words Arab and spring have to appear somewhere in here, but it's not taking the meaning of the words Arab and spring or the concept of the Arab Spring, into account when you're running the search. It's really just looking for the presence or absence of these words somewhere in the record. So, for example, if there is a guy named Jeffrey Spring who wrote a book of poetry and one of the poems, in the contents had the word Arab in the title, we would get that back in the result set. And the other issue is that there could be particular revolutions or events or people that are associated with the Arab Spring, but the author didn't actually use the word Arab Spring to describe it, right? And so those things wouldn't show up in the result list. So you have some noise that gets in, and then you get some stuff that you miss by doing a keyword search. So what's the way around this issue? Well, this is where the subject headings come into play. All right, so if you scroll down, you're going to see subjects that are actually do take the meaning of the search into account because they are applied by bibliographers or catalogers who look at an item and say, this is what this book is about. Here are a controlled list of terms that I can use to describe it so that, if there's anything that comes up, for instance, that's related to the Arab Spring, I can tag it with this and say, this is what this is actually about, regardless of the language the authors used to describe it. And if I click it, it's going to run this subject heading search, and all of the books that come back are going to actually have that subject applied to them. So you see we have much fewer results, but hopefully the results we do get are going to be more relevant. So get in the habit when you do find something good that you like in a WorldCat search or in a search in many other bibliographic databases that also use subject headings. Like most of them actually do. Just make sure that you open up the record, look in its description to see what subject headings are actually applied to it. Social change, Arab countries, history, 21st century, right? Arab Spring does not show up in this subject heading, but if I click it, I might find some stuff that might not have shown up in my Arab Spring search that could still be really useful to me. So do get in the habit of checking this out and playing the game of subject headings versus keywords to balance the number of results that you're getting versus the noise that you'll be getting in those results. You can look at subsets of results and discover new material by paying attention to subject headings. Okay, so there were a lot of different concepts on that last slide. But all of this stuff is going to bubble up organically as we do some searching together here now. So I mentioned that WorldCat wasn't the best place to look necessarily for journal articles in the scholarly literature. So then where might you want to look? Well, a couple of places that could give you an idea are our databases A to Z list and our subject guides. As I mentioned in the accessing resources video, these are two ways in which all of our many resources are broken down by discipline to help you know where to get started. Now, I'm going to be focusing on searching the scholarly literature in this video, but just know that many of the same principles apply in a lot of these other areas. So if you're looking for a particular type of information, say digitized newspapers, theses, geospatial information, government information, you're going to want to check out these places. Just in the same way you don't necessarily want to search in WorldCat for articles for particular things. You want to use the right tool for the job. So make sure you're exploring the options on the website before going straight into WorldCat to run a search. Let's look at Sandy's political science guide, for instance. If we choose articles from the left, we can see all the different databases she recommends for particular contexts. So, we've got core political science databases, but it goes into, area studies, legal studies, international security, and in different contexts, many of these could be good. You'd probably want to be searching in multiple databases, actually, to see what you can find. But if you don't know where to start and you're new to a discipline, the guides are a good place to look. So before diving into one of these, let's talk about creating an effective search strategy. There are different ways to do this, but one way to think about it is to come up with a research question and then use that to tease out some good terms. If you just dive in without thinking about what you're searching for first and the kinds of things that you want to get, you might find that you're getting a bit frustrated with some irrelevant results or really broad searches that are getting you nowhere. So it's good to reflect before you start. And this is a way of doing this. So you want to think about your topic. What's the main question you're trying to answer? What's the kind of literature that you're looking for to fill whatever gap in your knowledge that you need in order to make your arguments or learn something new, make your new connections? So then when you have your question, you think about the most important concepts in your question, and those are going to be your keywords. Once you do that, it's good to start brainstorming some alternate terms or synonyms, just because authors might not call things by the same way that you're calling them in the article. And as we saw before in our keyword search, if you don't use the right language, you might not get the right results, or you might miss something in your search. Make sure to avoid words like cause, effect, reason, impact, and small words too, like in or of and from. These kinds of things are going to mess up your search. You want to stick to big concept words. The reason we avoid these little words is because they might end up affecting your results in unexpected ways. So if you're looking for the effect of smoking on lung cancer, the word effect is not necessarily bringing any meaning to your search. You're only going to be limiting yourself by bringing back articles that use the word effect, when really it's just the concepts of smoking and lung cancer that you're interested in. Then you're going to join the words with Boolean operators, which are going to show you. And if you have a lot of keywords, you can use parentheses for clarity. You can also use multiple search boxes, which I'm going to show you in some of the databases. So let's look at a sample research question. In what ways has the rise of social media affected political campaigning in Canada? All right, so once we have our research question, we can look at the question itself to tease out the terms that we can use in a search. So we've got social media, political campaigning, and Canada being the main concepts or the main nouns in the question that we can use as keywords. Notice we're not using the word effect. We're just focusing on the main concepts in the question. So once we have our concepts, then we can start thinking of alternate terms. And the alternate terms don't need to be exact synonyms, but they should be at least related in some way. All right. So for instance, with social media, you could say Facebook, Twitter, social network, right? Not all synonyms, but all related. For political campaigning, we could say political advertising, political strategy. For Canada, we could say Quebec or Ontario or Maritimes, etc. Right? This is just an example. I'm sure you can think of others. And then what we're going to do is we're going to combine them with our Boolean operators. So there are three of these. We have and, or, and not. And these are the little operators that you connect concepts with in a search string. So you can search for instance, social media and political campaigns. So that's going to narrow your search. Basically, if you can imagine that there are 10,000 results in a database with the word social media in it and 10,000 with political campaigns, it's only the subset of the results that have both that are going to come back, meaning it narrows your search. Essentially, the words social media and political campaigns, they must appear in all of the results. So anytime you add something with an and, you're going to get fewer results. So keep that in mind. It might be a bit counterintuitive. You think adding things with and, you should get more results. Actually, it's the opposite. You're going to get fewer results because all of the terms must appear. So to expand your results, you can put in your alternate terms that we brainstormed using the or operator. So social media or social networks or Facebook or Twitter. And you can append as many as you like, all right, to get more and more results. So that's how you're going to use your alternate terms. And then finally, we have the not operator. If we search social media, not Twitter, then no results with the word Twitter in it are going to show up. Now, you want to use that sparingly, okay? Just imagine this case, you're getting a ton of results with Twitter in it, and you're really interested in other social media platforms, like to the exclusion of Twitter. So you put in not Twitter to get rid of that, but there could still be a chance that there are some useful articles that you do have that word in there somewhere, right? So you want to be careful using not. It's really only to clean up a really large set of results. And then we also have truncation, all right? So I know this is a lot being thrown at you right now. I'm going to show you in the database what it all looks like, but this is also really important. If you do a search in many databases or in search engines, for instance, like Google, they're going to come up with alternate terms or related terms and do a whole bunch of stuff in the background with their algorithm to get better search results for you. But you have more control in these bibliographic databases. It's not so much of a black box where you just type something in and hope something comes back. You actually have a bit more control. But the trade-off is that you need to be a bit more careful with how you construct your search. So for instance, if I search for the word Canada, I might not get results that contain the word Canadian. So rather than saying Canada or Canadian, what I can do is I can take the little asterisk and put it at the root of the word. All right. So we see in our example here, I have CANAD asterisk, and that's going to search not just for Canada, but Canadian, Canadians, and the French spelling, Canadien, and also the apostrophe S. So you can see how this could be useful, especially for geographic terms, verbs with multiple endings, that sort of thing. So what might this actually look like in a database? Well, we're here in Scopus right now, which is a really awesome multidisciplinary database. Runs across disciplines and subject areas. So you're going to get stuff in social sciences, humanities, hard sciences, all sorts of stuff in Scopus. And you're going to see we have multiple search boxes. So what's going on with that? Well, I mentioned earlier that you can organize your search concepts using parentheses. Well, rather than doing that, we're actually going to use these multiple search boxes to help keep things visually easy for us. And one thing you're going to notice too is that these boxes are actually connected with Boolean operators that are selectable. So I can go and, or and not. But what I recommend doing is leaving all of these at and all the time. All right. Incidentally, in most databases, you can add and remove lines as much as you like, but usually you don't want to go more than 3 lines, and you want to, or 3 concepts, because it will end up limiting your search too much. But I leave these at and, so that you can keep distinct concepts on separate lines, and then you can write in your ors in capital letters for your alternate terms. Okay? Just keeps things nice and visually clear and also logically clear, because the way Boolean operators work, if they don't resolve properly, then you might not get any search results, or things might break down. So keep 1 concept per line, write in your ors, keep this at and you can keep a search nice and neat. You're also going to notice I have the truncation in here: social network, or social networks, or networking, political campaign, campaigner, campaigns, campaigning, etc. Right? And then the last bit that you're going to see are these quotes, which I put around any terms that I want to search as a single term rather than as separate terms. So that's to say, I want social media to appear next to each other. I don't want social appearing somewhere and media appearing somewhere else. I want it to be social media. All right, I'm going to come back to this because it's a really, really handy tool in lots of databases, including Google. But you see how all that works. So I've got all of this lined up, and I'm ready to run my search. So we ran our search and didn't retrieve a whole ton of results, but all of these appear to be pretty interesting and on topic. So that's a positive. And remember that, you can run your searches, you should be running your searches in multiple databases to see what you can pull up, right? And not only that, searching is not a linear process, it's iterative. So we just ran a search, and it was a little bit complicated. We used a lot of different terms and operators and those sorts of things. That was really just to demonstrate the concepts. But normally I would recommend that you start as simple and general as possible to get a high number of results, and then start whittling down by adding in extra limiting terms or using limiters in the database itself. So let's just go back and modify this search again and see if it makes a difference. So I just click on the Scopus logo, I come back here. So instead of the political campaigning or political strategy, what if I just change this so it just, it's politics, political, etc. Am I going to affect my number of results? And of course, I could also add in more alternate terms for the different names of the provinces, etc. So now look, we've got 200 results. A lot more to work with. So you can see that, you can plan out your search all you like, and it's really useful to think about what you're searching for beforehand, think of as many alternate terms as you can, but ultimately, you're going to be iterating on your searches. There's no perfect search that you're going to use to get all the stuff that you need right off the bat. You're going to have to be modifying things, putting in different terms, removing things that might be limiting your results, using some of the language you're seeing in the results to then go back and modify your search. As you're reading more stuff that you find, you could think of other ways to continue your searching. You can look in multiple databases. So yes, very much an iterative process, library research and database research. The last thing I want to talk about is the concept of the scholarly research continuum. All right, so no work exists in isolation. It's always responding to someone, and unless it just came out or had zero impact at all, someone is responding to it. So a good way to find sources is to mine the bibliographies of recent sources to find the more foundational works, or to go in the opposite direction using a citation tracking database like Scopus or like Google Scholar is really good for this as well. What do I mean by this? Well, I have sorted the results from our search now to the highest cited articles. And for instance, we've got this What the Hashtag, a content analysis of Canadian politics on Twitter from 2011. And it's been cited 206 times, according to Scopus, within like Scopus's indexing. If I click that, I can see who those people are who are citing it. Because they are referring to this document, you can reasonably expect that in some way they're writing on a similar topic. So it was a great way of finding more resources by accessing the scholarly conversation around a topic, right? Google Scholar is also great for this. So if you ever find a book or an article and you want to see who is citing it, you can go to Google Scholar, type it in, and we're going to see, like, and in Google Scholar, you end up seeing way more citations just because it indexes a lot more stuff. So cited by 497 people, and you can search within the citing articles for, just say, the word Ontario to see what comes up. Right? So make sure you're thinking about the scholarly conversation when you're doing your searches as well, rather than just relying on searching. Make use of those bibliographies, make use of those citation indexing databases to help you uncover more material. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope it was useful. Please do be sure to check out the other videos for the ARIA Library Workshop session. And please don't hesitate to reach out to Sandy or I or your liaison librarian with any questions about library resources or anything that we covered today, or maybe things that we didn't quite get to today. If you have questions, we're really happy to help. Thanks a lot, stay safe, and good luck with the internship.